Hey everybody, Frank Vespi here for Charlestown Races Today. Charlestown Races Today is powered by the Racing Biz, theracingbiz.com, and it's presented by our friends at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. Charlestown Races Today is part of the Midlantic Racing Today family of podcasts. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. It helps us out quite a bit, so thanks for doing that. Our show today, we've got trainer Tim Graham's talking about Maggie's girl that he's got going in the stakes Saturday at Charlestown, plus looking at his career a little bit, talking about a bunch of different things. Fun conversation with Tim Graham's. We did interrupt him, I will say, in the middle of mowing his lawn. So we appreciate him making some time for us. A little bit later in the program, Charlestown track announcer Paul Espinosa going to join me. We'll do a little bit of news, do a little bit of looking ahead. So that should be fun as well. So without further ado, let me bring in Ted Black and Tim Graham's, and we'll see what Tim's got to say. Want to take us there?
Yeah, well, Tim, thanks for joining us, first of all. And big weekend coming up for you in a number of ways. Obviously, the Fancy Buckles, named for a really talented filly and mare that you trained. Won 7 out of 17 starts, a couple of stakes in there. Beaten favorite in the Cavada a couple times. I'm sure you'd like to forget those races, but certainly just a raw, talented filly that you owned and trained. And now, of course, Maggie's girl, another one with a lot of ability, going to be among the favorites to win the race for a namesake that you trained. So just talk about how good Maggie's girl's coming into it and what it means to you to have the Fancy Buckles, as the first stakes race of the year, Tim.
Well, it's always nice to be able to run in a race that that was named after a filly that you trained, and Fancy Buckles was a nice filly in her time. Maggie's doing great, I'm not sure that Maggie wants to run long anymore, but she's training good, and I look forward to have a good performance again on Saturday. Looks like 4.5 kind of what she wants to do now.
Yeah, she's already made history, winning the blue and gold. And then, of course, the first time the race was added to the Breeders' Classics as race number 10. And, she got the inaugural one there. Any similarities, Tim, watching her train, watching her race between her and Fancy Buckles, the race namesake that you for whom you trained?
Well, I think that they both had that when they changed to that left lead on the turn, in the quarter pole area, from the quarter pole to the top lane, they both had that same kind of surge in that same area. And actually, deep in the lane, 4.5 not so much, but longer, but deep in the lane, and they, when they ran longer, they could get a little bit late. Both of them had the same style actually, but but going 4.5, they both stayed pretty strong even at the wire. So, and they were both, a lot alike really in a lot of ways.
Okay, good to hear. Tim, before we get into some of the contenders in the race that she'll be facing, talk about how critical the draw was. We've talked about this in the past, that going 4.5 up there, you don't want to be, you really don't want to break from 1 or 2. You want to break from 7, 8, 9, or 10. So how big of a sigh of relief was it for you to see 10-horse field and she draws post 8? I mean, had to be a little bit of a sigh of relief right there just to see the break from the outside.
Well, embarrassed to say, guys, I haven't even looked at the draw yet. I've been on this lawnmower. But I'm glad. Thanks for the news, Ted, and I do like that. At least from the outside, Ted, it's like what you were saying. From the outside, you can, even if you don't break on the engine, if you break good, you can come over and just not have. If you're on the inside and break tardy, you got to put the pedal to the floor right off the bat. At least outside, you got a little bit more of a grace period that you do if you're on the rail.
Hey, Tim, you mentioned the surge she has around the turn. How important is that sort of element of the race going 4.5?
Well, I think it's important here, especially with the circumference of the track. It's a sharper turn, and I tell you, the horses that can excel on the turn, that 4.5 seems to suit them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 'cause a lot of times when the horse hits the turn, you notice from the quarter to the eighth pole, they just look like they're there. But other horses, when they change to that left lead, I mean, they pour the coal on now, and they handle it well, and I think she handles it pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, all of them don't, but the ones that really excel at 4.5, they do.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. So Tim, just to give you a glimpse of some of the competition, you're full field of 10 in there. You got post 8, some speedy ones inside of you. Priority 1 for Anthony Ferrier. Strida, of course, you've danced with her a few times. Red Hot Chili Philly is just inside of you, and then
Nice
outside
Philly.
of you, outside of you, a little bit of speed as well. Party Time for Me, and then
She's
Edie's
a
Flame.
runner.
So they certainly didn't make it easy for anybody. But you draw post 8, you're in with a lot of talent and a lot of speed. So
Yeah.
that,
It definitely sounds like it's going to be a very contentious field. I mean, a lot of very talented horses in there, a couple 3-year-olds, and they're in, I think, at 17 or 18 versus 26. That's a big difference.
Right, correct. Yeah, they do get the weight break this time around.
They get a weight break. So, even though they're talented, still 10 pounds or close to 10 pounds, that's a lot.
No, that's true. That's true. Even going 4.5. No, that is true.
Even going 4.5, yeah.
Yeah, haven't obviously they just drew today. Haven't seen the morning line, but I imagine Priority 1, your Philly, Party Time for Me, Edie's Flame. We're all going to take a considerable amount of money. In the past, Maggie's Girl might have been odds on in a similar race, but I honestly don't see her or anybody really going much below 8-5 in this group. I mean, it's just a lot of live fillies in here, Tim. So
I'm telling you, hey, it could be once all the betting's done, they're even them nice fillies. Hey, there could be a lot of 2 and 3 to 1s and about 4 or 5 of them.
Right, correct.
Just
That's
because
correct.
they're just so evenly matched. I mean, at least we hope that we're evenly matched anyway.
Right, exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of talent in there. I mean, who knows how this thing could go.
Speaking of talent, when Fancy Buckles was running, Larry Reynolds was pretty much in his prime. Now he's obviously on the return, and you've been a big factor in that. How about the way he's riding now, Tim, and how good he fits Maggie's Girl?
I tell you, Maggie is kind of. I don't think she's a hard filly to ride, especially going 4.5. The break I think is crucial. We gave her a break there that time, and then we had it took us a couple starts getting her back into it, but now we got her back. That's why I said this is going to be her last year. But I told Larry, I said, she ain't going home this winter. We kept her there, just kept her in light training. But I said I wasn't done, because what happens with them fillies? They get home and there's boys and stuff at the farm, and hey, sometimes you don't bring the same horse back, although they're physically good. They're mentally, they want to stay at the farm. So I said, she ain't going back there this time. I said, it took us too long to get her woke back up the last time we did that.
Right, sure.
But she's doing good. But like you said, I think Larry fits her well. I think the filly's doing as good as she can do. So it'll be you have to get a good breaking. Got to get in the race early. I mean, if you don't get in the race early against these kind of horses, you're in big trouble.
Right.
But if you get in the race early, she'll be good.
Yeah, and at least with post 8, Larry's not going to be hard pressed to send from the gate just to guarantee position. He can, obviously he's going to come out fairly aggressive, but he can bide his time for the first, 200-300 yards, and then look to get into an ideal stalking spot on the turn. But there is speed outside of her too. So it's going to be.
You can't give Party Time for Me any head start.
True. No, she's tough.
I don't know what happened. She's been running really good, but I don't know if the the track didn't suit her, or what exactly the last time that filly didn't run a race, because she's capable of a lot better than her last performance. I don't know if maybe she just had a bad day or something.
Yeah, it could have been the off track. I thought Priority 1 shortened up a little bit last time out. So, I think maybe she'll be on the improve this time. Edie's Flame coming into it perfect. Your filly's coming into it off a couple nice second place finishes. So,
And
there's
Strata,
literally
nice filly too.
right. There's literally
But
nobody you can toss looking at
shoo, you
the entry.
cannot. How about I haven't seen his overnight powwow in there.
She did not go in there. No, she is
She was
not in there,
nominated.
Tim.
Looks like she's
Yeah.
training great. I see her in the morning. The filly looks beautiful. I was surprised not to see her in there actually.
I think I'm not guaranteeing it, but I think from talking to Cindy that she wants to keep her going 2 turns up there. Knowing the next
It's
stake
hard,
is 2 turns, and then it's
she
hard to
ran
cut him
such
back.
a great race. It's hard to cut back, man. It's hard to cut them back.
We've talked about that over the years. For a number of horses you've had, and I think Cindy is pretty much committed to keeping her going 2 turns from this point on. So
she ran a great race the last time.
Right. No, she's tough. She's tough.
Yep, she's a runner.
So yeah, field of 10, and a lot of familiar faces in there, and then a couple of them that I think are making their stakes debuts, but they're certainly there's certainly not going to be any tosses. So,
no, absolutely not. I tell you,
then,
another filly that can really runs that red hot chili. That filly's got some talent too.
She is good. Yeah,
she's right inside of us. You said, she's the runner.
Right, she's got the 7, and certainly, right, not a toss. I mean, you've seen these 4.5 races 1,000 times, Tim. It depends on the break and it depends on the trip. And
that's exactly right.
If you break clean, you got a shot. If you get a clean trip, you got a shot. If either one doesn't go your way, you're gonna write it off and hope for next time around at some point. But
that's exactly right.
In a field where this group is that evenly talented, the break is going to dictate it. The trip is going to dictate it. And, whoever has clear sailing that last 100 yards is going to be in prime position too. So
absolutely.
Tremendous race. It looks like
it might even be.
Go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
Hey, excuse me. It may even be the type of race with the speed that's in this race. It may be the type of race where it might not be the worst thing in the world if you had a filly that was, the type that ran 2, 3, 4 lengths off the lead, because it's going to be hot on the front end. We know that.
Right.
So,
correct.
Something that can close, that could definitely be a factor in there, but I'm not sure any of these fillies actually close. Now, Party Time for me, she kind of comes off the pace sometimes and runs big races, but I don't know the form on everything, but it's going to be a very hot on the front end.
Yeah, it's it's you hate to use the word salty, but I mean this race probably could not have come up any tougher for an opening stakes for state breds, anywhere,
absolutely.
Especially 4.5. So,
like you said, there's some that Priority 1. Eddie, there's some very nice 3-year-olds in this race.
Right. Yeah. There's, if you take a glimpse at the entries, even without access to the morning line, I mean, there's nobody in the race you can just say is an automatic toss. Really.
Might be as solid a race as run here this spring. It really, as far as a race of this type and being that solid from one end to the other.
No question. Yeah. Great first stake to start off the calendar, for state bred stakes. And then Tim,
sure.
You've got the next one as well, kind of coincidental, but the next stake a week from Saturday is the It's Only Money. Another one named for a horse that you trained, won the first Charlestown Dash. Oddly, I don't think most people don't know, but the horse was not West Virginia bred, but nevertheless, you win a couple stakes races with them and the first Charlestown Dash. So, again, what's it like to have another namesake race for you, and what's the prospects of Moonlit Notion going in there to try to win it for you?
Well, we did nominate him today for the race. Right now, he's at the point where he's still got a condition or two left, but it's hard to get the races to go for him, and the races that do go for him are really tough. Now, he'll have to run against Duncan, Idaho, Honey Quest, and a bunch of really, really nice 4.5 running animals. But I told Judy, I said we'll take a look at it. We'll see what it's like. He's got to step up to me, but he had that surgery last year, Ted, that I was telling you about. And once that happened, not sure that I got the same horse back, but he's doing good and everything. But it could be just that the competition caught up to him. I mean, he started off. Brilliantly, but things has changed some. He's still training great and everything, but he's got to move his game up to run against them kind of horses, I think.
Yeah, we talked about it, Tim. I mean, he couldn't have started out his career any better, and then unfortunately, he had one of those rare conditions where he was impacted, had to have surgery, and then lost a lot of weight, as you mentioned in the
terrible,
the
terrible.
story we did, and yeah, so I mean, I think it's understandable under those conditions that, as you mentioned, maybe you don't have the same horse back that you had.
Yeah, it's possible. And I said, I know I might not have the same horse, but back then, he kind of popped through them lifetime conditions. So maybe I do got the same horse, but the competition is saltier than it was when we started.
Right.
I'm not sure because he's training just like he's always trained, but we'll find out if we decide to do it. It'll definitely be a tough task for him, I think.
Yeah, and your recollections of It's Only Money. Obviously, won a stake at Colonial, if I'm not mistaken, and of course won the first Charlestown Dash. And not a pure speed horse. I mean, he won the Charlestown Dash, coming from a little bit off of it, and set the track record. So,
he was one of those horses I got early in my career. I had him and She's a Caper too at the same time.
Right.
But he's a horse that I
think we lost Tim there, Ted.
Yeah.
Than I did back when I had him,
He's back.
I'd love to have him again and be able to try it again with that horse because had a lot of talent.
No, understandable. And then, one last thing, Tim. People know you for a little bit for It's Only Money, but they certainly know you for Runnin'toluvya. Highlight of your career to this point. Win the Charlestown Classic, $1 million race, your first graded, and what was it like training him, and what's life like for him now that he's been retired for a couple years, Tim?
To speak a little bit about Runnin'toluvya, probably be the best and a good horse, and was very exciting. When he ran in them couple graded races there at the Charlestown, but it was life changing, just to have a horse like him, and it was a great ride that he took us on. But he's retired now, and he's in the backfield. He stays back there with like 5 or 6 mares, gets fed a couple times a day, and he's still ornery as can be. You go in there, you go watch him all the time, where he come running up behind you, wanting to play and stuff like that. But he's definitely retired and enjoying his life that's well deserved. I mean, what a great part of our life he was for a long time. But like I say, my wife also, to talk a little bit about it, she was thinking about making a jumper out of him. We tacked him up a couple times. Well, Ted, as you know, he was just as ornery as tacking up even when he got home. I told her after a couple of days of that, I said, you know what? Might want to find you something else to ride. And just took him back to that pasture where he was at. I said, let him enjoy it. He was just tough, and he always was tough like that. But maybe that's what made him a racehorse. I don't know, but he definitely was that. But
Well, Ted, thanks for doing that interview. That was trainer Tim Graham's. He's got Maggie's Girl in the stake Saturday at Charlestown, and possibly Moonlit Notion in the one next week. Both of them named for Graham's trainees. So kind of a fun coincidence there.
No, exactly. Tim's, had a little bit of success earlier in his career with the two namesake horses, Fancy Buckles. Won 7 out of 17 starts. Unfortunately, I think she's going to be most remembered for the two races she didn't win. She was favored in back-to-back editions of the Cavada and finished second in both of them. Ran respectably, just got beat once by Original Gold, I believe. And then, of course, It's Only Money was right around the same time when the first Charlestown Dash. Had a decent career. He won a stake at Colonial as well. So, yeah, it just worked out that Tim has the first two races named for his trainees, and Maggie's Girls and the Fancy Buckles, and probably Moonlit Notion will be in the It's Only Money. So a chance to win both races as well with current trainees.
Yeah, which would be fun for him. The one horse we didn't get a chance to talk to, I was going to ask him about, but we ran into technical difficulties years ago, maybe 20 years ago, maybe even a little more than that. He trained a horse that I owned a piece of, that we owned a piece of, named Jenkins Jones, and
oh wow,
he won a stake or two up there with him back when they had stakes like the Charlestown Dash. He didn't win the Charlestown Dash; he didn't have that kind of speed, but for non-West Virginia breds. And
right.
Anyway, so we had some fun winning those races and with that horse. So I was would have been curious to hear Tim's recollections, but next time we'll defeat the technical difficulties.
Yeah, and I think he was Maryland bred, correct? Wasn't he Country Life? I know
he was Country Life. I want to say he was Virginia bred, actually,
really? Okay.
but
Okay.
that might be wrong too. It's a long time ago. I barely remember what I had for lunch today, let alone where Jenkins Jones was bred. But he was a fun horse. He was a nice horse, and actually, Lucy Howard, who was one of the partners, took him at the end of his career.
Okay.
And as of last time I talked to Lucy was less than a year ago, he was still kicking. She still had him, and he was still kicking. So hopefully that's still the case. But anyway, that was a fun interview with Tim Graham's. We'll look forward to seeing how his horse does this week and potentially next week as well. Thanks for doing the interview.
No, thanks for having me on, Frank, and glad to get Tim on there. He's usually a pretty personable sort, likes to talk about his horses, and carved out a pretty good career for himself, certainly over the last 25 years especially.
All right, well, we'll do this again in 2 weeks. I'll look forward to chatting with you again about it.
All right, sounds good, Frank. Thank you.
You're listening to Charlestown Races Today. Coming up, Charlestown track announcer Paul Espinosa.
Happy to be joined here by Paul Espinosa, track announcer at Charlestown Races, and finally getting to some stakes action, Paul, which we could talk about in a minute. How's the winter been treating you so far?
It's been a long, monotonous winter at times, but certainly happy to the weather's turning a little bit. I guess it's been a little bit of a roller coaster here lately, but certainly we'll take this compared to what we had to deal with in January and February. And like I said, with the warmer weather, obviously the return of the stakes racing action, which certainly spices things up. We're scheduled to run 165 days a year here, and so again, the stakes days do take on pretty significant meaning. Where again, few and far between, and a nice reason to get excited about some of the best and brightest that we have here on the track, taking to the track. So looking forward to that.
No, for sure. We'll talk about that in a minute. How many days did you lose to the weather this year?
I believe it was 7. 7 is the number that I have in my head. That's not official, but it was, there was a stretch there. where I know that we lost, I believe it was at least a week. And that was again, we were 4 days a week through January, February, March this year. Very happy that we're getting back to the 3 day a week schedule now, where we're starting to see our field sizes pick back up again. And I know that's just certainly what the fans and horse players are looking forward to, and had a nice little uptick in handle as a result. So funny how that works out, where the bettors, they do seem to love those bigger fields as opposed to some of the 5s and 6s that we've had. And so again, hopefully looking forward to a return to again some nice solid fields, and like I said, with the stakes action to boot, great time of year here at Charlestown.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, we talked about this off air. Your field sizes, it's a challenge. I know you're in March, you're going 4 days a week, and it's the weather, this and that. But overall, your field sizes have held up pretty well for an all dirt track, which relies to a significant extent on a pretty small breeding program, the West Virginia bred program.
No doubt. And, again, I do think that when you look around at some of our neighbors, I know that we definitely have a lot to be thankful for, that we have still been able to maintain, at least we haven't had to lose any days by any means. But we definitely saw from a numbers, talking to my boss, Charlie McIntosh, director of racing operations, he cited last year when we were 3 days a week in March, we had a 7.8 average field size. This year, with 4 days a week, the numbers were 6.2. So basically lost over a horse and a half. And so, again, that's one of the things that we'll continue to keep an eye on moving forward. But I certainly acknowledge that compared to what some of the other tracks in the region have been having to deal with, we've certainly kind of we've been pretty lucky in that regard, that we've still been able to maintain, haven't lost any days because of lack of entries. So again, always something to be thankful for.
Yeah, no, that is something to be thankful for, because we see that pressure on tracks throughout the region. One of the things, Paul, that I thought has been interesting so far this year, I mean, we're through the first quarter now and a few days beyond, but at Charlestown, potentially little bit of a changing of the guard. Maybe that's going a little too far, but we're seeing some different names sort of in different places in the trainer and jockey standings.
No doubt about it. Again, the hot names this winter have been the combination of Ronnie Brown and jockey Moises Santaya, who recently just graduated and now lost his bug. And so again, he's right up there with perennial power Arnaldo Bocachica. Really, for the first, I don't know how many years of my time here. This is my 11th year, I believe, in the booth. It was Runco and Bocachica, and then here in recent years, Anthony Ferrier has taken over the title of top trainer, and now Ronnie Brown is coming for that crown, and he's certainly off to a hot start. And so yeah, it is an interesting thing where it's really one of the first times that I can remember it being a race. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. Again, sometimes my memory can those years can kind of run together, but it definitely is shaping up to be an interesting spring, summer, fall, and then winter eventually to keep an eye on these races. But certainly seeing some new names makes it pretty interesting.
Yeah, it really is something different. It's something. Sorry, I was getting a phone call there. It really is something different. I mean, like Boca has basically run away with the rider title for however many years that's been now. And maybe he still will, but we're a quarter of the way through the year and he's got a 3-win lead. So.
Yeah, and again, the thing with Boca is that obviously he kind of, he and Runco were synonymous for so many years. In fact, so synonymous that they named a Sam Huff West Virginia Breeders' Classic winner after them. Yeah. In Ronaldo. But then when you get, he's still going to be any sort of, rocket ship that Jeff has, he's still going to certainly be on them. He's going to be on his fair share of Runcos. But then I would say kind of first call most of the time now for Ferrier. And again, he certainly is putting up running a lot more horses than Jeff does. Jeff, I feel like right now focuses a little bit more on quality than the quantity. Whereas I feel like right now, both Ronnie Brown and Anthony Ferrier, they have both of those things. They have quantity and quality as well. And so, that's always been the advantage for Boca, is that he's had the, again, two of the top barns. And when you're getting, the best one out of those in every race, pretty much, that's going to give you a pretty good head start. But, and don't get me wrong, that's not to slight liked Boca. He does a great job of having his horses in great position pretty much every time. They're very rarely you're going to see a horse out of position with him. But Santa, he certainly has the look of a jockey that seems to move horses up, and so it'll be interesting to see if there is a continued changing of the guard, or if this is just a kind of an interesting little blip here in the spring.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun to see. And, you're talking, you got a first stake of the year this year, the Fancy Buckles coming up on Saturday, 4.5 furlongs for older fillies and mares, state breds. Santa, did he have a stakes win last year?
It's a good question. I don't recall. I don't believe that he.
My guess is no.
Because I feel like, again, he obviously does ride for other barns, but I think primarily he's first call for Ronnie Brown, and I know Ronnie he would use him, he would use Juan Belsario when he was here quite a bit, but I don't know that Ronnie. I just don't recall him having any other stakes winners that he would have had a chance to be on. But I would think that that's a pretty safe bet that he will. If he didn't last year, he will this year, because I think he'll be well mounted.
So I got to ask you, because you just mentioned him, where did Belisario get to?
I believe that there was something, and this is a touchy subject. That there was something in terms of maybe some immigration issues, and that's about all I know about that. It's not like I'm withholding much outside of that. That's kind of my understanding, is that there might have been something where some paperwork got misplaced, and so I think that there's still some optimism that we'll see him back at some point. But right now, I believe it's something involving that.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting, because I believe Dennis Araujo went through that when he first came, and then he left and he was gone for a while, and he had, I think, an injury issue, but he had some immigration issue that he had to work out, which he did, and now he's been back for years. So it's challenging when you have a largely, the jockey colony typically everywhere is basically a Central and South American workforce. So a lot of immigration challenges there. But Santa has a chance to get that first stakes win Saturday. He's on the last say for Ronnie Brown, leaving from the inside. What are you looking at for this race? Talking with Tim Graham's earlier on this show, he's thinking there's a lot of speed here. There's going to be a lot of horses going.
No doubt. I do. I think it's a pretty interesting this year too. And I don't know if this is how big of a change this is, but I think there was a change in the order of the stakes races, which I believe has to do with the breeders have a say, the horsemen have a say, the track has a say. I think it's a 3-person kind of committee. And so I feel like in years past, we've gone 3-year-olds, and then a couple weeks later, we've run the older versions of these races to kind of give the 3-year-olds a chance to come back. This time we do have a couple of or at least 2 pretty talented 3-year-olds that I think, again, are going to be facing off here against olders. But I see it kind of the same way. I think that there are going to be a lot of speed. Again, you kind of come to expect that for 4.5. And, Maggie's girl seems to have been the leader pro tem of this division for quite some time, and I think she's gonna have her hooves full against with some of these fillies and mares that have really just been a hard knocking bunch. And I think there's certainly some potential upside as well with some of these. But yeah, when you look at Priority One, I think that hard to imagine her not making it to the front. Strida obviously has the speed to be the fastest in the race, but sometimes she has some gait issues that can kind of pop up every once in a while. And so then you have Edie's Flame drawn on the far outside. Typically I'm not a big I don't worry a ton about outside posts going 4.5. Just because of it's basically a 1/4 mile run down the backstretch. You have plenty of time to get your position. But in a race where, again, there's going to be a lot of speed, it's going to be hard for her to envision her being able to drop in and save black ground. She's going to have to be much the best from an outside draw. So be interesting to see. I think it's, again, certainly a fascinating first stakes race of the year to kind of dive into.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly going to be a fun handicapping challenge. I guess a first question is really going to be, is Farrier going to send Priority One and Edie's Flame to post when when actually both of them are 3-year-olds, right? So there's a race for them just for the 3-year-olds at some later on.
Correct. Yeah. I almost got my. So there's the It's Only Money and the It's Been Too Long. Those are the It's Only Money is for that's boys, and then but the coin collectors are 3-year-old boys. It's been too long as 3-year-old girls. So I would think that again, it's just a tricky thing. Off the top of my head, I'm actually kind of drawing a blank on when, like how big the gap is, because I believe the way we were doing it this year is so it's Fancy Buckles this week, then the It's Only Money, so that'll be the boys race, and then we go to the 3-year-olds, their division. So we've definitely seen some quick turnarounds here in years past. I guess that'll certainly be one of the first questions is does he want to bring them both back in this race, or maybe point one thinking that they have a more of a coming into that race in their best form. That's a tricky call. If I was going to send one, I think I think Edie's Flame, just because of the pace dynamics, and again, priority one, she looked like she could be any kind going into her last race. And then again, clearly she went off 1-9, then defeated by her stablemate in that event. And we're going to get a look at that now. So that's priority one out on the lead in the Jill Daniels Silks. And, looked like she was kind of just cruising along here. As a race caller, I'll just say that you obviously, I handicap these races. I do the morning line. You try not to focus much on what you think is going to happen. You definitely try to call what you're seeing. And but it was hard at this point not to think that she was just going to run away from this field like she had in her first 2 races. And then you start to kind of see Boca Chica's hands. He starts getting busy on her. And when he turns over the stick at the top of the stretch, you're like, uh-oh, she's in some deep water. And Edie's Flame, JD Acosta, just a brilliant ride coming right up the inside of her stablemate. And, just hard to argue that she was anything other than just better in this race. So again, it'd be a tough one for me to barring some sort of like significant, if there was a health issue that popped up out of the race for priority one. And again, this was only a couple weeks ago, so it's hard to imagine there being some sort of thing that would cause her to take that big of a step back. And at the same time, hard to imagine her being able to reverse that form just a few weeks later. Again, I'm obviously not on the backstretch to know if there was an issue, but yeah, I would think that if there was one that I would want to send to the post right now, Edie's Flame seems like she's probably doing a little bit better of the 2.
Yeah, I mean, that was, as you said, it was sort of inexplicable. I mean, priority one's off at 1-9. I watching the replay, I didn't have the sound up there, but the way you called the race, what you just said mirrored how you called it. Like, you sounded very sort of relaxed as they were rounding the turn. And obviously you could sort of hear from your voice, this horse is in control of this race. And then all of a sudden she wasn't in control of this race at all.
Yeah. And again, it was just especially weird because I feel like you also will see it at times. Like if she had been headed and like had to like work really hard up the backstretch, like, you have it in the back of your head, like, okay, this is some adversity. And she definitely did not face a lick of adversity in her first 2 starts, but it didn't seem like she was facing much adversity in that start either. And then all of a sudden, again, she was just all in and essentially all out at the 8th pole. And so yeah, I think that, thinking about her having to, there's no scenario in my mind where she would be able to have it as easy on the front end in the Fancy Buckles as she did in that race. And so again, for that reason, that would just be a tough thing for me to, I certainly wouldn't want to take a short price on her, which again, I feel like the public sometimes, she'd be a hard horse to just like cold turkey quit. I could see her taking more money than I would be comfortable. Yeah. Taking her at shorter odds. So.
Totally agree. Now, another horse that actually is different from, but somewhat entering this race in a somewhat similar way to priority one is Party Time for Me, who's going to be leaving from the 9 hole with Joe Stokes up for Anthony Grigsby. This horse was in just really, really good form. And then just nothing last time out.
Yeah, she was, again, because you really can go back to, just the first, third,
Yeah.
second, third, first, second. She just never threw in a clunker. And for that one to kind of come out of nowhere, getting a look at her here, I believe that's Bella Mela on the front end there in the Kazdan silks for Javier Contreras. And then she's going to come on through along the and split horses there. Works out a nice trip. And, again, just this was the type of race where you're like, okay, like she belongs. She has proven now at this point that she is no fluke. She is just as good as as any West Virginia bred filly mare sprinter that we have. And so then, like you said, for her to come back, it's not like she wasn't. It's not like it was her first trip into open company. She had certainly had that, and just really had no punch. I don't know. I would have to go back and look at the card on March 19th to kind of see if maybe there was the track was a little bit more speed favoring that day compared to others. I do feel like there was a little bit of a stretch in March where that was the case, and so maybe kind of caught one of those nights where she was just kind of against the track. I would say that of the two horses that we've kind of focused on for the most part thus far, between Priority One and her, I would be more willing to give Party Time for Me a pass. I think maybe just because of I think value-wise, again, Anthony Grigsby doesn't have a large training outfit. In fact, I believe that this is his only filly or mare in training right now. Again, he has three starters on the year, and she's run 3 times this year. So I believe that she's the only one that has put up stats. But again, just when that's no knock on him, but when you have Boca Chica, Farrier, again, I just think that
they're going to get bet.
Priority One's probably more likely to get bet. And so maybe this is a chance to, in a race where we've talked about there's going to be a lot of speed, she has certainly shown that she is capable of sitting and pouncing. And so I would be more likely to, more willing to give her a pass than I would probably Priority One based on their last races.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good handicapping point. What do you make of Maggie's girl? Seems to be coming into this pretty well, and obviously, Tim thinks that she probably doesn't want 2 turns anymore, which she sort of demonstrated 2 back, where she didn't run badly, but I think she's a bit better doing this.
So I have a kind of one of my pet peeves. I'm not a pet peeve, but just an angle that I have is I'm normally against horses cutting back from 2 turns here at Charlestown to 4.5. I just think that it takes some of their early speed away from them. And so a filly or a mare like Maggie's Girl, who likes to be on the front end, I feel like she ends up having to work a little bit harder to get her position going 4.5. And so I like her now with that 4.5 race back under her belt after last time. And the filly or mare that she ran behind, Julie's Legacy, she might be the best 4.5 furlong filly that we have at the track right now. She is a very interesting filly for Michael Jones that they brought her up from Gulfstream Park, and she was very fast down there. And again, they definitely don't write 4.5 races down there, but it seems like she has very much found her niche. And so I definitely do not hold that last race against her. And I think that, again, having that 4.5 race back, that tightener back under her belt, I think that her best is still the best in this field. And so, I think that she would be, if you were to rank the most likely winners, I think that she probably is. I haven't nailed down the morning line yet, or I haven't even started full transparency. But I would say that I'm still going to probably lean her just based on her body of work. And I don't think that, again, it's not like she's been throwing any terribly inexplicable performances out there. She's been running a race for the most part. And I think that now getting back against state breds and with that 4.5 race back under her belt, I think she's gonna be the filly or the mare to beat. And I do think that, again, certainly Tim Graham's has her primed and ready to roll here. Just an awesome mare over the years. She's won 50% of her races, 14 for 28 lifetime. And so she's definitely going to be the one that they're going to have to deal with in the stretch on Saturday night.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that's true. That'd be fun for Tim. He trained Fancy Buckles. You win the Fancy Buckles with another of your horses. We'll see if he can manage that. Anybody else that we haven't really talked about that you think is worthy of mention?
I know you mentioned the last say, and So that's Ronnie Brown. That's Moises
Yep.
Santaya from the inside. And, I see the comment was jostled start last time, 2 back in the start that Ronnie claimed her. It was rank at the start. And so, another kind of handicapping angle of mine is that I do feel like for whatever reason, so full disclosure, when I'm doing my, this is a look behind the curtain that'll be probably lose a lot of people. But when I do the morning line, I do just get the regular proof from the racing office, which feature the Equibase speed figures. And I've noticed that over the years that some of the Mountaineer figures do seem to be a little bit inflated. And I do think that there is sort of like how people probably move up, Maryland shippers when they come to West Virginia. I think that you kind of have to view the Mountaineer races as a step up. Going from Mountaineer to here can be a big jump. That being said, she ran some pretty good races up there, going 5, going 6, that make her at least somewhat interesting. If you are willing to take the angle that I mentioned earlier about horses cutting back to 4.5, she has that 4.5 race where hopefully if she breaks well, she can maybe secure a little bit better position. You have some hot connections right now. She'd be a filly, a mare. I keep saying filly, but these are going to be quite a few mares in this race that I feel like she could get a little bit overlooked, and it'll obviously you'll know out of the first jumps out of the gate whether or not she has a chance, in my opinion, because I definitely don't see her running some of these down. But if she can get back to some of those races that she was running up a Mountaineer and kind of show that those weren't a fluke, she'd be one that I'd be a little bit intrigued by. Again, not saying that I'm picking her on top, but I think that she could offer some value in a race where you do have some more established fillies and mares that could take a little bit more attention at the windows.
I'm curious. I don't know what the stats this year show, but I remember looking at them like last year, and there was not a great inside-outside bias issue going 4.5. But I know a lot of trainers really prefer the outside, and really like to be sort of coming in across the field rather than breaking from the rail. As a handicapper, where do you land on that?
I guess it just sort of, I think, depends on the circumstances, where I feel like if you have a speed horse that is drawn inside of other speed horses, I think that probably you're just at that point, you're just like hoping, well, okay, I think this is the best horse. I think she's the most likely to make it to the front. And I like that she's not going to have to cross and clear. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think if you are, there's only a couple speeds in the race, I could see where being outside might be the advantage. So I think in a race like this, I actually would probably rather take my chances on an inside speed that I know is going to be able to have the real estate that everybody else wants. And at that point, again, obviously it's like so much clearly going 4.5 is won or lost at the break. And so you just take your chances. And so again, a mare like the Last Say, who last 2 races has trouble lines at the start, that me liking her is sort of that you're kind of wishing and dreaming and hoping, and that obviously can lead to heartbreak and losing money here at the racetrack. But again, just in search of some sort of value, if things really went perfectly, that's the scenario. And again, that's all you can kind of do in these when you're handicapping horses. At least figure out what you think is going to happen and hope for the best after that. And you're at the mercy of the starting gate gods. So.
Well, and I mean, Santa, one thing he does well is he gets horses going. He can send. So probably the right guy to have on a horse breaking from the rail, going 4.5. Curious, what do you make of Strida anymore? I mean, clearly she's not the horse that she was a couple of years ago. Now that she's 6, you think she has this kind of race in her stuff?
That's a tough one. Last time, she was back to, really good Strida out of the gate. And that's not the race that I feel like I see her lose. I feel like she loses her races at the gate. You see some comment lines here. Stumble, that was 7 back. Antsy, that was 6 back. Fractious, 5 back. Fractious, 3 back. Fractious, 2 back. So again, I feel like that's when she loses her races. I don't think she's supposed to lose that race last time. And so she could be a thorn in the side of some other speed in here for sure. But I do not see a scenario where she sticks around for the end and holds off some of these other fillies and mares. Just kind of my opinion. And again, it's she's probably has the award now for the most claimed horse of my time here. Where,
wow!
Again, it's like eight claims on the page, just on the program. So it's crazy. Just she's made a lot of people a lot of money, and she's a mare that certainly deserves a soft landing whenever her racing career is finished. And again, they all do, but she has a special place in your heart. Again, just a hard knocking mare that lays it down every single time.
No, you gotta love a horse like that. Like, knows what her job is, does her job, tries hard. Keeps running good races even while getting cycled through barn after barn. But completely agree with you. Last horse I want to mention, and then we can let you get about your day. Red Hot Chili Filly, which is a lot of name. Must be fun for you as an announcer to call that one. This is a horse that run a bunch of good races. Last time out was just okay, but has a bunch of good races before that.
She has a very similar profile to Party Time for Me, and in fact, you look at the bottom of her PPs. They were racing against each other quite a bit, and so hasn't been in the raging form that she was again at that point of her career where she had again started off pretty hot, but again she's really. Here at Charlestown, she's never really run a bad race. In fact, really only one race out of the top three, and that was last time out in that same race where Party Time for Me had the trouble. So again, that's a race where that was her first out of the year. You would think that she would probably I would think that she'd be moving forward off of that race. I don't know who the best filly or mare that she's defeated is. I guess the answer would probably be Party Time for Me. But I haven't seen her against, I think stakes caliber competition provide like that knockout punch.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that, again, she's another one that probably could provide a little bit more value than she has in the past, and would certainly be one that, for the exactas, tries, supers that I'd want to include at a price, because, again, she's another filly that has shown that she can sit and still deliver a kick through the stretch, which is obviously hard to do sometimes for going 4.5.
Yeah. Now, as the announcer, do you get up in a different way for a stakes race than another race?
I do. Yeah. It's, like I said, just because of the sheer number of races that I call every year. Like I said, I think last year, I think I only missed four nights. And then, so again, you call so many just, regular races. And so even like some of the nicer allowance races, you kind of, save an octave or two. But yeah, I think especially the 4.5 races here with the full fields, the goal for me is always to hopefully have gone through the entire field by the time they hit the far turn. And yeah, they are, I often say that every race is somebody's derby, I feel like. And so, whether that is the $5,000 race where, who knows if you're down on your luck, whether you're a horseman or woman, every race is important to people. And so I do try to, I try not to just, flatline anything and just kind of, throw it out there. I do try to take that seriously. But that being said, there is another gear for these stakes races. And it definitely, for me, it kind of, it hones my focus a little bit. And, I would say one last bigger picture kind of thing is that I know that for me growing up, my grandfather, he had a number of good horses over the years. And so I used to, love going back and watching replays of their performances. And one of my goals is always, I hope that for these people that enjoy or that are able to enjoy a win in one of these races, that they don't have to go back and watch the replay on mute. I just don't want to take away from their experience of like, this is this euphoric moment. We've just won a $75,000 stakes race. We're at the top of our field, if you will, right there. I just don't want to distract from the moment. And I just try not to get in the way. And hopefully, that's worst case scenario. Best case scenario is you're able to add to that moment and capture that excitement that they were feeling in that on that night.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. It never occurred to me that you guys would have to worry about being muted, but clearly that's a thing in your profession. So
I'd imagine that's probably a default for a lot of people with some of my calls, but yeah, we'll So hopefully a couple of them have left the volume on. So
No, I leave the volume on, but
I appreciate that.
That's just me.
You and Ted, we'll count you guys as volume on guys.
We're volume on guys, definitely. Do you? And I'll let you go. I'm just curious. I've always, for reasons that escape me, like I never had any interest in being a track announcer, like zero. But I still find it really fascinating, like the whole thing of the craft and whatever. Do you hate owners who give hard to pronounce names or names where you could stumble into a cuss word if you're not careful?
Not particularly. There aren't a ton. I will say candidly, this is my first time, I guess, ever publicly announcing this. So the Riverview Farms, when they put RVF at the end of their horses, so there was obviously the most famous one was River Crossroad RVF, who was the horse that
kept bolting, right?
Exactly. Kept taking the right turn at the top of the stretch. That was always just like, that was just a weird thing where it's just like, what are we doing here? River Crossroad. Like if you cut it at that, like that's fine. But like, it was just the letters afterwards were just, that was just a little bit of a nitpicky thing. But no, I mean, it's one of those things where, I do feel like I'm very fortunate compared to some of these other announcers that have to deal with a lot of foreign imports on the turf, whether that's French names, British names, German names, some Arab names. We've got Jubas, we got Fibersons, everything's pretty straightforward here. So I do count my lucky stars that there aren't a ton of tricky ones. You mentioned Red Hot Chili Philly. Again, I think when it's all kind of situationally based, if you're in a race where you have a lot of multi-syllabic names. So, party time for me, quite a few syllables, Red Hot Chili Philly syllables, when they're all coming to the wire together, it can be tricky if you're trying to squeeze them all in there. But for the most part, no, I don't have any real ill will towards any sort of names. And until somebody names a horse Espinosa's a jerk, then we'll have to revisit this conversation.
I'll keep an eye out for that one. I'll put it on stable mail.
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right, Paul Espinosa, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for appearing here on our maiden voyage of Charlestown Races Today. Happy to have Charlestown join the fold here of Midlantic Racing Today, and look forward to doing this a bunch more times over the rest of the year.
Likewise, appreciate what you and the crew do for coverage of our product here at Charlestown, and looking forward to getting stakes action kicked off on Saturday night.
All right, sounds good. It's Paul Espinosa, track announcer at Charlestown Races, and earlier we had Tim Graham's trainer. He's got Maggie's Girl going on the Fancy Buckles Saturday night, so we'll be looking forward to that. Just had a nice conversation with Paul about the Fancy Buckles and announcing and some of the news taking place at Charlestown. Charlestown Races Today is part of the Midlantic Racing Today family of podcasts. We're going to be doing this 2 weeks hence for the next Charlestown Races Today. And next week we'll have a couple different ones of Maryland Racing Today. So we'll look forward to that. Charlestown Races Today is powered by the Racing Biz, theracingbiz.com, and presented by our friends at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that very much. And we'll catch you next week on Maryland Racing Today. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great weekend, everybody.